Welcome to Casuals of Runeterra, episode More Heartsteel. I'm your host, Ryan, here with the other host, Ed.
Yeah, that's right. For you Heartsteel fans, it's episode 2. We're brand new at this. You have to forgive us wherever we slip up because we're rookies. We don't know any better.
Lying. He's not lying. But yeah, we promised you this episode where we're going to go over the GQ interview that they did or they ran. And it's in Korean, but Hetch and I were kind enough to translate it for you all on our own. And obviously I'm lying.
Yeah, 감사합니다.
But one thing I'm not lying about, housekeeping. It's up top, always. And you can listen to us everywhere. Visit us at podcastcore.com for all of our info. Remember, that's COR. Email us at podcastcore@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Follow us on all the platforms because that helps us with discoverability. We appreciate that. And then leave a like and comment where you listen. The easiest way, though, is word of mouth. So tell a friend to rockstar to the top by listening to the Casuals of Runeterra podcast.
To do what? Oh, God, we're unhinged.
So the GQ article was released before Paranoia came out. And the way it's structured is just like you would see with any new debuting band, where they ask them a bunch of questions in an interview, allow them to be cute and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And that's what they're going for here. So we start off this interview with everyone introducing themselves. Set mentions that, he doesn't really consider this a boy band. It's more of a collaborative effort and a collective. And when you think about their backstories, like we talked about in the first one, and we'll go more detail into that as well, that makes more sense, right? They all had careers, and this wasn't assembled as, hey, we took a bunch of kids from the Mickey Mouse Club and we're going to have people write for them, whatever. It's like, no, they're collaboratively or doing a collab where they're bringing different elements to be able to produce the music themselves. And all of their motivations are different. Their styles are different. And then the ending result is like a Wu-Tang type situation.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the styles because it's if you haven't listened to the first episode, like one of the biggest points of the first episode was where everybody got their start. And for we have guys like Aphelios just in his basement mixing music, and that was the same way for God, I'm blanking on names as if I've never been here before. Of Yone was mixing music into in his basement as far as in Japan, but it was his own thing. And then you've got Ezreal, one hit wonder from a completely different label. Cassante is trying to start his own thing, but too ambitious. So it really is like a collaboration because they all were doing something completely different, not just musically, but also just via career paths.
And in different areas.
Yeah, because Ezreal and Set are the only ones that actually met, quote unquote, through their label. Yeah. And they didn't even meet through their label. They met after Ezreal left the label.
Exactly. So this then goes into, they talk about the style, and Cassante is kind of the lead on the style, and everything thematically you'll see is, hey, we're working together, but we're also individuals. And he even talks about the choice for them to wear suits on the cover spread that they have. And even with wearing suits, they decide to let everybody style it the way they want to, and GQ gave them that option because that fits their whole motivation.
And this is the part where, and I'm just going to get this out of the way now because there's a lot more parts that have this same echo to it. The GQ really did a great job of making this feel like not just a real interview, but a real K-pop interview. Because if you've watched any K-pop interview with any K-pop group, regardless of the time frame or the gender of the group, it sounds exactly like this. Exactly like this. Yeah. So you already have an idea without even reading through the GQ article what's being said at this point.
Yeah. And then they move on to say, okay, well, tell us about how the group was assembled. And Cassante leads off here, and I'm going to read his quote here. It says, There's a limit to what one person can fully take on and accomplish. I was quite lost after going solo. A friend from the gym named Set, who just verbally abused me now, told me that he had a new project he was working on someday and asked if I would be interested. That was the beginning of my involvement with Heartsteel. So that kind of gives us a bit into what happened to Casante, and we gave you some of that as well in the previous episode. And even Kane follows up to mention that he was a part of a band, but he was too much of a bad boy and he got kicked out. And then, like Hetch mentioned, Yone was a DJ making his own music, and he was contacted by Aphelios to join the production side and help him on Heartsteel because he recently lost his or recently had to reduce the use of his voice. And Aphelios was originally reached out to by Set. So it's like these essentially, we're not going to say destiny, right? We're not going to use such grandiose terms.
Yeah, this isn't the Stardians.
Yeah. But they all fell into the same place and met each other and then picked up themselves from, a lackluster past life to push into this new effort. And that's cool. That's very, because when you have that type of setup, as opposed to the more standard setup of KDA, which we still love, it gives you more room to do this, to do the lore side. There's more space to play with.
Yeah, and not to mention that it also makes it feel a lot more human.
Yeah.
Which, like, it's not to say that KDA doesn't feel human. It's just that KDA is heavily manufactured, right? Like in comparison to this, where this is just like human networking.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, come on, how perfect is it that Casante and Set met at the gym?
Yeah.
Like,
Makes sense.
Like,
Yeah.
that's awesome. And you look at their art, and like in Eddie's skin, and you're like, yeah, no, they're definitely going to the gym.
Yeah. Cold take, Hetch. Cold take.
Yes, cold. The coldest of takes.
So we then find out that if you want to look at the very origins of it, it was Ezreal and Set who started this project together after this major incident that we hinted to before in the previous episode, but we'll talk about right now. I'll read it from Set's perspective. He says, actually, I was having a hard time at the time in a similar reasons as Ezreal. I was on my way out after receiving a dismissal notice from my agency, it's very common, for not liking my first album, and saw Ezreal surrounded by paparazzi. Although we had never known each other before, I helped him because I thought it would be a bit unfair to just pass him by after seeing such a scene. It turned out that Ezreal had just been fired from his agency, once again very common, and was on his way out. We went for a drink and shared our sad feelings. We talked for quite a bit and became friends through that, and thought it would be nice to work together at that drinking party. And then he also punched somebody. But
No, he punched a paparazzi.
yeah, they're not people.
Exactly. We're going to hell.
I got VIP tickets. I don't know about you.
Ayo. Yeah. But like, especially like this is where like it, to me, like GQ is really, kind of putting like the Korean feel onto it, where it's like this really does feel like a Korean GQ article, because there are plenty of interviews where there are questions as far as like the drinking habits with the band members.
Yeah.
And like those clips will be all over YouTube. Like if one of the band members gives a funny answer of what someone's like when they drink. And so it's like, yeah, of course, like, I ran into him, he was in trouble, I helped him out, we were both having a bad day, we went and got drinks.
Yeah,
And
it's
it's like
grounded.
that it keeps it grounded while also kind of giving like Korea GQ able to kind of give like a little bit of their own signature onto the tale itself.
Yeah, exactly. We move on then to talk about the leadership, because even though Ezreal helped to start it, he's not one of the leaders. It's actually Casante and Set that run it as co-leaders, which is also agreed upon at the beginning. This isn't something that naturally happens, which is smart, especially when you're doing a collaborative, to kind of avoid any issues in the future. And then they also mention people's nationalities, and Alun says that, luckily everyone speaks English because all of them, once again, were in the industry. So most likely they would have that skill, and that allows them to communicate because they live in different areas. And they also get a little Discord drop here, which is not on accident. I'm sure Discord paid a little pretty penny for that little plug.
Yeah. And this episode is brought to you by Discord Nitro.
Just pings going off crazy in the background. We'll add it in post.
We'll do it live.
Yeah. But then they talk about inspiration, right? And obviously, this is the KDA mention. And the main thing that inspires them is their growth, right? Their growth and success. Because remember, KDA had a track, they disappeared for a little bit, and then they blew up. And that's one thing to keep in mind because that's also a very grounded thing that happens, especially adding members to the team. So they look up to them like they're seniors. And Kane and Akali actually are old friends because they're both in the industry. And he even makes a joke here where he's telling her, "Hey, answer your DMs, idiot." So we can link up. I know you're big shit now, but I'm on my way up too.
Yeah, and like all of this right here is just a wonderful job. Like we've mentioned before that it's like grounded, like it helps keep it real. And I mean, they're mentioning a software that you can use in the real world. Like they are interacting in ways that, as far as like to current day modern conversations, right? Like we all know what they mean by hey, answer your DMs, but you know, like somebody from 100 years ago or somebody from 100 years from now, like
Yeah.
that sentence may just go completely over their head.
Mhm.
And that's what helps kind of make it feel grounded. And holy cow, when they start talking about KDA, it's like, okay, look, I get it. You're making it feel like K-pop, but you take a breath, all
Yeah.
right? Like this is the most Korean thing ever where it's like, "Oh, we are so proud of our seniors in KDA and we wish them much success." And then, like you could just imagine them bowing like to the
Yeah.
camera while like, while they're saying all this. It's like the if anyone's familiar with like the Letterkenny group, like the comedic group that makes the show Letterkenny, they have a whole video as far as like hockey players answering interview questions.
Yeah.
It's this.
Yeah.
This is the Korean version of that skit.
Exactly. One actual thing or one extra thing is the relationship between Kane and Collie here is also neat because it has a callback to their real stories, and I say real stories, not in the real world, but in the the main lore with Kane's relationship to Ionia and then the ninjas of Ionia as they try to hunt him down. So that's a cool little ad there, right?
Yeah. And it's nice that we have that ad because we do know that as far as like Kane's stage persona is not entirely just Kane.
Mhm.
Like Ross is involved
Yep.
with that stage persona. So it is a nice call out to have that bit of lore in there because it is like Ross is still a part of it too. It's just very nice. Instead of being hunted by a collie, can it just grab microphones and sing while simultaneously being on TV going, answer your DMs.
Yeah. And so, after that, we get to the name, right? They always ask debut groups, hey, what does this name mean to you and to your fans? And, Cassante, or actually, Alun puts it very well. She says, people have soft emotional hearts, but they are also very resilient, just like the word Heartsteel. Simple and straightforward. And then you have like Ezreal being goofy or whatever. Um, because that's, he says something, girls scream, and we move on. That's
Yep.
kind of the role he's playing here.
And I mean, it also just like, we were mentioning that it like fits with the characters like in-game personas as well. And that is Ezreal's persona in game. Like we
Yeah.
we mentioned it in the last episode that like they pinned Ezreal perfectly as far as like his role in Heartsteel. And like you could just imagine all of the screaming in the background as if this was like a interview with Carson Daly.
Yeah.
So um if anyone gets that reference, you're as old as me. Sorry.
And then naturally, the follow-up to that is what are your symbols? Like what represents you in the group? It's the Power Ranger theory, right? So we actually have colors here they associate with themselves. So Set is orange, Kane is purple, Ezreal's green, Aphelios is blue, Cassante is gold, and Yone is red. And the official group colors is black and yellow. And they're kind of going through what would you call your fans, which they don't have a name for yet since they're supposed to be like an early band. They have a couple that they're kind of going back and forth. You have like cool guys, knives, diamonds, just like I don't know. I was gonna say, hey, let's try to come up with one, but for Heartsteel, it's a bit tough because everything you come up with seems cheesy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, we're poking fun at Ezreal as far as like, kind of playing into his role and getting all the girls
Yeah.
fired up, but I like it also is like it's just a naturally cheesy thing, right? So what other avenue does he have to play with?
Yeah.
But I I think it also just kind of fits as far as with the whole boy band persona though,
Mhm.
right? Because if you look at it too closely, you're going to like
Yeah.
the ridiculous things kind of jump out more
Yeah.
than that, which is why I think it's like, most of the groups that get worldwide recognition is like the music is what comes first, right?
Yeah.
Um, so that's a deeper conversation that has nothing to do with lore.
Okay, okay, okay. So now we shift to the producer side because the main boys have been talking and they ask Yone about his formal introduction on his role and how he got here. I'm gonna read his quote here because it's pretty good. It says, "As I said before, I played music of a genre that I liked and that only I knew about." I wonder what that is.
Right.
Speed metal, a dead genre.
No,
Trying to
I had
bring
a
it back.
buddy I had a buddy send me an album that he referred to as funeral core.
Okay.
So that's probably what Yone was mixing in his basement.
Okay.
And we know from his lore, since he's like in the spirit world and like with
Yeah.
masks and stuff, that it's like, yeah, no, he's near death. It's not too far fetched.
He goes on to say, since group producing has to embrace everyone, I started to like genres that I had never touched before. I never thought and dreamed that I would like pop songs. So stopping right there, that's something I mentioned in the previous episode that's very common is a lot of the current big producers in K-pop right now came from other genres and didn't really have an interest in that space until they actually started playing in it and noticed, hey, this is a lot of fun collaboratively.
Yeah. And we get to see that in other areas of music outside of K-pop as well. If you look at reggaeton, Bad Bunny has been in multiple interviews saying that actually didn't like reggaeton.
Mhm.
Well, not that he didn't like reggaeton. He didn't want to perform reggaeton because he was a Daddy Yankee fan because, of course, he's Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
But he wanted to do metal. Like he was a big metalhead, and then it's like, oh, like started mixing music for other people,
Mhm.
to pay the bills, and it was like this is kind of fun.
Yeah.
And it's like, at the end of the day, when you're creating something, you got to have fun with it. If you're not having fun, you're not going to make a product that's worthwhile.
Just like Jimmy Neutron. Remember, Jimbo, have fun with it.
God. I think a gray hair grew hearing that.
And then he finishes up with saying, I am in charge of overall production and Aphelios is in charge of composing and lyrics. So even there, on the other side of the mic, there's a collaborative effort as well from two people with their own backgrounds, which just adds to, why we like this group so much. And then we hop over to, Yone speaking a bit more about his relationship to Yasuo and how, even though they keep in contact, their careers are very much separate, but they're both secretly kind of cheering each other on.
Yeah, and I do like this because it gives a bit of hope as far as seeing True Damage again.
Mhm.
Whether or not like they're actually going to give us like another music video or something like that, I don't know. But at the very least, it does open the door to have like a bit more info drop. Because now that the best part about having Heartsteel with this amount of content out there is it's building the world of KDA
Yeah.
around it, right? Because KDA is obviously the most popular of the
Mhm.
releases, but if we're continuing to build that world, like there's more ways to bring other people into it, and that's exciting. Like we love covering all these stories and stuff, and especially one that like feels so like borderline real,
Yeah.
right? Like it so many ties into the real world. Like that's a lot of fun. I mean, heck, we're reading an article by GQ.
I know, but imagine. Listen, if you think when will Ryan and Hetch go over the edge? It's pretty close. It's pretty close to.
You will know when we have a GQ article.
But yeah, it's dude, it's fun because the next thing they talk about is okay, so you guys are getting started, Paranoia is coming out. What stars would you like to emulate? And us crossing over into this fake world, them kind of referencing the real world. And
Yep.
the answers are varied, which more reinforces the collab aspect rather than the boy band aspect. Because Casante says Beyonce, Kane says Linkin Park and Pentakill, shout out.
Yeah.
Ezreal says, I never know how to say this guy's name. I know what he looks like. Troy
I
Sivan, I think is how you
yeah,
say his name.
hey, you remember the rule of the show,
Once we
all
say
right?
it,
Once we say it, that's it. So it's Troy Sivan. Sorry,
it
Troy.
sounds like a dragon. Which would be on theme.
It would be on theme.
And then Set shouts out all of the background names that we now know. The vocalist Baekhyun, Toby Lou, Ozzy, and Carl Scrubby or Scroby. And then Loon says Aphelios is in favor of Brockhampton. And then Yone shouts out Foodman, who's probably like a smaller. I'm not familiar
Yeah,
with him.
I do love like the Yone shout out because it's like if Foodman's real, we're not familiar with it.
Yeah.
And it just goes into everything he's been saying,
Yeah.
which is I was making music just for myself.
Yeah.
No one else
Actually, that
liked
would give
it.
us. Let's look up food. We'll dig into that because that will
Yeah.
tell us what genre he was in.
Oh yeah, we could like watch it not even be real, and we'll just
Journalism
never
at
know
its
what he was mixing.
And then we wrap up here with some obvious things like Ezreal being the visual lead rather than an actual lead. And they talk about one day hoping to perform at the League of Legends Worlds on stage, the big stage like KDA did, which they just did. Like this is going up right after Worlds. Go check it out. Great games, great performance for their first time, both in person and the graphics they use, which just get better and better.
Yeah, it's a very exciting time as far as for getting this kind of content dropped.
Yeah.
And I do love like as far as when we're getting towards the end of this and they're talking about like, we want to do worlds one day. It's like, okay, yeah, cool. Well, even KDA and other artists that have performed on the big stage, they have kind of like a slogan or a sign off.
Yeah.
And if you have followed K-pop, you know the 1, 2, 3 of the Hana Duel Say, and then everybody goes in chorus and everything. And this one of my like funniest parts to me of this, which is like, oh yeah, we haven't got that yet, and they all just start shouting stuff.
Which one's
out.
your favorite? Because obviously you guys heard my favorite at the top, Rockstar to the top.
Oh god, I'm so mad at you for that. I think my favorite, just because of like you opening with Rockstar to the top, is Yone's, which is let's come to our senses, everybody. Like,
Could you imagine this amazing show? People are sweaty and dancing, and at the end he's like, "Hey, everybody, cut the music. Let's come to our senses." And it's like, like everyone, like it's Monday morning and we don't have to go to work. Like, what the fuck are you doing, dog?
It's like your parents just came home and you were throwing a house party. Let's come to our senses. Get out of my house.
And that's the end of the interview. So, we're happy we got to do another episode, and this will be the last one for now, because I'm sure more Heartsteel stuff is coming down the pipes. The skins will be coming out soon. Those look cool, but
the skins look great,
dude. Great follow up. I mean, we're obviously biased because we enjoy all these. I mean, we're Pentakill fans, right? How many newer players know who the fuck Pentakill is?
I need more Pentakill in my life.
We do need more.
And we got a name drop of Pentakill in here. But which again is why, it's like stuff like this is very exciting because
not
it's
only a name drop, but Yorick does a guitar solo in a mashup remix that just came out.
Yo.
Yeah.
Hello. And so there's like, like we could get like some kind of like, galactic battle, except it's just battle of the bands. and it's not galactic at all.
Oh,
And
dude.
it's like that's when like they drop like a new True Damage on us too. So
Yeah.
there's like KDA versus Heartsteel versus True Damage versus
Dude,
Pentakill.
it's so if you've been listening, you can go now if you're in a rush. But Riot's actually putting themselves, and I don't know if this is planned, but they're putting themselves in an interesting situation where they have enough success. Like all the groups have been a success in their own way. Like Pentakill's probably, if you had to say quote unquote, least successful, but metal as a genre is on the lower side as far as demographic anyway, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
But they're putting themselves in a situation where they're introducing their newest group, which is represented as a collaborative effort, and having shout outs and crossovers. Like I said, the mashup just came out. They're putting themselves in a position where they can start picking and choosing characters as it fits their, schedule in the real world and financial situation in the real world, and possibly creating some really cool crossover projects, because crossovers, if you've been on TikTok musically, are all the rage, where you have like, hey, here's this song, but in this style.
I mean,
Right?
this is this will kind of date the recording,
Uh-oh.
but like we're recording this on the week where Megan the Stallion dropped a collaboration with Spirit Box.
Yep.
Which Spirit Box is like my kind of music. So like like the track is sick too.
Yeah.
So it like now is the time to like really hit that, and Riot's shown that they're really good at striking when the iron's hot.
Yeah.
It also opens a door as far as like for the world building of like the original goal, like the original like lore of League of Legends, which was the greatest champions of Runeterra getting brought into an arena to duke it out 5v5. Like that's the OG lore before we got all these great stories put into the game. Sub stories taken out to be replaced with better stories, and that was the original thing. So then you have like some skids that have been there for a decade at this point, like Graggy Ice. What if we get like a little sub story of Gragas like starting up his brewing company to serve to all of like the bands, like all the fans that go to see these shows and stuff. And then it's like, yeah, Gragas becomes like a international success with Craggy Ice. I mean, it's a dumb thing, but like it can breathe life into the content that Riot already has in the game. Like, Olaf could like show up to sell breads and stuff because a colleague got him in because they met like in doing food trucks when she was a sushi chef on the way to KDA. Like, like you can build the stories there.
Yeah, what Hetch is saying is if you listen to our Star Guardian 10-part series, because we have a sickness, soon this universe is going to get to that point. You're going to sit through a 10-part series of the musical universe.
And we're just the crazy idiots to bring it to you. Because I could totally see like some info dump coming, and then like both Ryan and I just looking at each other and being like, it's time. It's time. Clear your schedule.
So with that, as always, thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out. We'll be back soon with the next episode.
Yeah, take care, everybody.